Hi, this is Ashley with My Amelia Photography and Photoshop Actions. Today I'm going to go through editing a photo with the new Color Perfect set that was just released a couple of weeks ago. I know that they're fully customizable, the actions, and I know that some people aren't entirely sure how to use them, so I thought I would run through and just show how I would edit a photo using these actions. And I'll start with the stuff that I do to every photo, so you'll see the whole editing process. Okay, so every time you use the Color Perfect set, before you run anything else, run the base coat. It's the primer. It makes the actions look the way they're supposed to look. If you don't run it, it's not going to look how they're intended to look. And the base coat is adjustable as well. So one thing, what it does is it sharpens, it adds a spotlight in the center, it boosts the color a little bit, ups the contrast, makes it a little lighter. You can switch that to darker if you need to. One thing that I usually do to almost every photo is increase the opacity on deeper shadows. And I just do that until we've got it where we need it. Okay. And I'll show you the difference. So here's before the base coat and after, and now you see why it's so important, because if you just run it on the before, it's not any action on the before, it's not going to look the way it's supposed to. Okay, so one good thing to do after you run the base coat is to use the Create Snapshot tool. And now here's your snapshot, and this will let you go back to the base coat anytime you want. So if you're wanting to try different actions and see what looks the best, let's say, I already know what actions I'm using on these pictures, but let's see. Let's say we try bubblegum. Now it does a lot of things, so your history is going to be full of stuff. So let's say I don't really like that and I want to run another action, but I don't want to get to the point where, you know, I can't take steps back. So just go back to your snapshot and that takes you back to the base coat. Okay, but for these, I'm actually using Royalty. Before I do that, there's a few touch-ups that I will do using Model Makeover. The first one is Sharpen Features. I do this on every picture. That's at about 30%. Make sure the white brush is on. Just run that over the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. And if there's a color cast on the whites of the eyes, I'll use whiter whites. There's not much of one here, but just a tiny bit. And that's at 30 as well. And you just run that over the whites of the eyes. And we'll do Like a Baby's Bottom, that's skin smoothing. It takes a minute. Usually while I'm waiting for this, I go check Facebook or something. Okay, run that up to about 50%. And just on the skin, you don't want to touch the features. And if you don't have Model Makeover, if you have another skin smoothing action, you know, that works too. Now on some people I'll use Jeepers Those Peepers. On her it's not really necessary. Her eyes are gorgeous just the way they are. Okay, so coming down here, I'll run Royalty. And that's the action I've been using for this whole set. Okay, and it looks pretty like that, but I tend to like less haze on the subject themselves, and I'm going to lower the opacity on the action overall, because I just want it a feeling, not something crazy. Okay, so I came down here to this haze layer, and this is why I say everything is fully customizable. So I come down here to this haze layer and make sure I have the mask selected. I'm going to make my brush black, and I'm going to put this up to 70% because I want most of the haze off of her. And then I'm going to run it over just her, nothing else, because I still want that haze on the background. That way she pops from the background. Okay, now the vignette that I have in here is dark purple. I have been changing it on this set. I don't do this on everyone. I like the dark purple, but this is a more, supposed to be a more innocent look, so I've been changing it to just a regular black vignette. And to do that, come over here to the Royal Vignette layer, click on this little square right here, come up to where it says Gradient and click on that. And then you'll come down here, click the color, and click this color, and then you change it to whatever color you want. I want black. And I'm going to increase that layer to make it a little more dramatic. Okay. I'm going to increase my matte layer. So I like the matte look on these pictures. And I'm going to increase my gold just a little bit because it was at sunset, so we want to show those sunset colors. And I'll drop my mauve down a tiny bit. So like I said, everything's customizable. And here's without the action, and here's with. So it just adds a little feeling to it. Okay, now one thing I do on every single picture is use the Dodge Burn tool, and that creates this gray layer here. So to use the Dodge Burn tool, you'll use a black brush to burn and you'll use a white brush to dodge. And burning, you want to do, well, there's a lot of things you can do with the Dodge Burn tool. You can burn contours onto the skin, you can darken eyelashes, you can, brighten highlights and things like that. But what I do on every picture is burn the background and dodge the subject, and that creates a whole lot more contrast between the background and the subject. So I put 20% and I have my black brush, so I'm burning. So I'm going to go over the background, and I'm going to get the very edges of the subject. I don't want to get on her too much, but just the edges of her. So burning the edges of the subject creates more definition between the subject and the background. And I'm going to come over here and lower this quite a bit. This is a white brush, so I'm dodging now. And I'm going to go, I'm not going to do the edges, but I'm going to go over her face and her body. Here. And we'll look at the difference. So we've got quite a bit more contrast now. Now when I save a high resolution file, I change the resolution to 400. I always have my dimensions at 11 by 17, 17 by 11, and I do resolution 400. High resolution just needs to be 300 or above. You don't want to go too incredibly high, but. And then I'll save that. Okay, now I'm going to put my watermark on here. which I use a brush to do my watermark. And put it on white. Just up in the corner. Now I'll use the Facebook Resize Sharpen. Which puts it at the right size for Facebook. Obviously. And it sharpens it up a little more because, as everyone knows, Facebook kind of destroys your pictures. And one tool that I haven't been using on these photos, but I use on a lot of pictures, is the skin tone palette. And I'll just show you on here and then take it off. But go ahead and run that. And what this does is let you paint a nice glow onto the skin, and you just pick the color that matches the skin. I would say that she might be cream, and you're going to have this black mask selected. Have a black brush. 30% ought to do it. Oh, gotta change it back to a brush. Still on my watermark. And you just brush it over the skin. Just make sure you don't get it on the clothes or anything, because it does have color to it. So that shows you just the little glow that it adds, and then you can go through, and if you think maybe you picked the wrong color, you can try out other colors, and actually I think that one works better for her. That's too light. That's too dark. So she's the classic ivory, but like I said, I'm not using it on here. But anyway, that's how you use the skin tone palette. And then there's some final touch tools that you can use. If you think that you've got too much blue in your photo or a certain area of your photo, you can use that to brush it off that specific spot. Same thing with red and green. If you lose your contrast, your depth in the photo, if you're messing with it so much that, you know, certain areas aren't as deep as they need to be, you can use the bring back shadows. If you lose your highlights and they get muddy, you can use the bring back highlights. And that's it. Oh, we've got our black and white actions. One thing to remember on the black and white actions is those run directly on the base coat, not on top of a color action. So that's where your snapshot comes in. Like I showed you, we made a snapshot of just the base coat on the photo. So if you're doing a photo in color and black and white, then you'll go back to your snapshot and come down here, and let's see, run one of your black and white actions. And then you'll customize that the way you want to. So one thing that I would do is take the spotlight off because it's already pretty bright. And I like the vignette just like that. Might do just a little less depth. And almost all the black and whites have an optional matte. That looks very vintage. And an optional haze, which you can brush that off of the subject as well. So everything you can tweak to get just what you want. And just make sure you run everything on the base coat. And that's how you edit with Color Perfect. Thanks for watching.